is it smaller than the array length? If yes, then add 1 to j, and then run this code. Now, if that j is smaller than array.length is false, then it'll move on to the next thing, if that makes sense, I guess. And so then in there, we're going to put array, and we're going to put j equals j. And the reason we did that is because basically the aim of this program is to have an array of numbers 0 to 999, each in their respective slot. So slot, say array subscript 567 has a value of 567. So if the array j equals j, then the array with a subscript of j is equal to whatever j is. So the array of the subscript of 5 equals 5. Then if that makes sense, and since you add 1 to j each time, it has to go through every time. It'll run this code, around 1,000 times, and each one assign a new value to the array placeholder for whatever j is, and it'll replace it from 0 to whatever j currently is, if that makes sense. So if j here is 50, so the array slot 50 will then equal 50 because it'll equal what j is. So that's kind of a convenient way to fill them all with increasing numbers increasing by 1. Of course, if I wanted to do it, say I wanted to do a, this would of course make it extremely large, but if I wanted to have it so the number contained within, say, the placeholder for, or the area for, the bin for, I guess, 576, it'd be 576 squared. So 576 times 576, if that makes sense. So that would be like an exponential one. Of course, we wouldn't want to do it with numbers this big, and it would overload and say that give us a bunch of errors because those are out of the range for integers, and this array is of integers. So since we're going up to 1,000, we're just going to do j. So now we're going to do a system.out.println. I'm not going to do a GUI on this one, GUI on this one. I'm just going to straightforward this way. So I'm going to say the array's elements are, and we're not going to put anything else in there. It's just that, and anything in that parenthesis for that system.out.println. And our goal is to have 15 numbers of the array print on each line. So it prints 15, goes to the next line. And at first this seems kind of like, well, how would you do that? But it's actually pretty simple once you get into how this would actually work. So we're going to write another for statement. So we have an integer, I'm just going to use I. So integer I, and we set it equal to 0. Then we have I must be smaller than array.length, and we're going to add 1 to I each time. Okay? So now, inside our for statement, if it's true that I, semicolon, not comma, if it's true that I is smaller than array length, then it adds 1 to I, and we already set integer I equal to 0. We could also set it up here, of course. Since we're not passing it to methods and stuff, we could set it anywhere above where we use it, of course, and it would work. So, we're now going to do system.out.println array placeholder array, and with a placeholder of j, plus, and then I'm going to put double quotes with a space in between them so that I have a space between each number. So what it's going to do is it's going to say I equals 0. Okay, the program now sees I is equal to 0. Then it says, is that smaller than the length of the array, which is 1,000? Yes. So then it adds 1 to I. So I is now 1. And it prints out the array for the placeholder of 1. And actually, it would do 0 and then add 1. The for statements are a little more confusing than while statements, so I'm pretty sure the way this would work is it would run this code and then add 1 to I, because this is true, so it does this code, then adds 1 to I, because 0 is listed when you do this. So you don't have to do like j minus 1 or something like that. So we print array of the value with the number contained by the placeholder j in the array named array, and then it puts a space after it so that all the numbers aren't smushed together. So then we're going to do another if statement inside. Actually, we're going to our integer this will count. We're going to add 1 to it each time we do the system.out.println. And that way, what's nice about this is then we can do a statement called if, and then our this will count number is equal to. Remember, if you only have one equal sign, it's getting into Boolean stuff, and you want to have two equal signs unless you're working with Boolean, I guess. I always have two equal signs. I never work with Boolean, although I'm sure I will at this point. So if this will count equals 15, then we run this code. And we run this code system.out.println. It's blank. We're not printing anything. And that's just printing an enter. So it's going on to the next line by doing system.out.println with nothing in it. It's going on to the next line. Then we're going to set this will count back to 0. So that way we can start the process over again. And so the nice thing about this is that once it prints, oh, I should have used I there. What was I thinking? J and I look a lot alike and get kind of confused sometimes, I guess. What you really want to be sure of here is that, let me plug my power cable in. You really want to make sure that you don't get caught by the one-off error where you say, oh, array number 999 or array number 1000 contains the number 1000 here. No, there's no array with a subscript placeholder of 1000 because it starts at 0 and counts 1000 up. So from 0, which would stop at 999. So you wouldn't want to get confused and say, okay, well, I'm going to go all the way up to, if you were trying to do this hardwired, so instead of being a kind of dynamic thing where you change it up here, then it changes here and here automatically, you want it to be like a hardwired thing. You wouldn't want to put smaller than 1000. You want to put wouldn't want to put smaller than 1001 so that you include 1000. You want to put smaller than 1000 so you didn't include 1000 because 1000 isn't a subscript of the array, if that makes sense. I hope it does. If you have questions, feel free to comment below and I will help you with that. So we set this will count to 0 because we want to start this over again. Then outside of that, we have our another pair of ending brackets. And then outside of that, so we've completely finished this for statement, which had a nested for statement in it. We're now going to add another one. This will give you the sum of all the integers in the array. So I'm just going to call it integer k. And while that's equal to, we set that equal to 0. Then we say it must be smaller than, say, oh, and by the way, when I was talking about the double equal signs, you don't have to use that on stuff like defining what an integer is. It's just for like for and while statements and stuff like that, okay? So I know I talked about don't use double equal signs, or use double equal signs because if you use a single as a boolean, not when you're declaring a variable, just when you're doing it in a for or while kind of statement like that, I guess. I'm sure there's some other reasons why you'd use that or wouldn't use that. But anyway, k equals array.length. K is smaller than, can't talk while I type, array.length, and then we're going to add 1 to k. And then we're going to say if, so we're going to define an integer k as 0, then if k is smaller than array.length, run this code, then add 1 to k is essentially what this program is doing, what this portion of the code is doing here. And we're going to say that sum of array, which we already defined up here as being 0, is then set equal to the sum of array plus array subscript k. And the nice thing about this, or what this does essentially, is it says, okay, so k equals 0. This is the program's logic. K is now equal to 0. Is 0 smaller than 1000? Yes. So we're going to run this. So 0 equals 0 plus array. What's stored at 0, 0. So k is still 0. Then we add 1 to k. So then it says, okay, let's try this again. Now we have 1 added to k, so that's, 1 is still smaller than 1000. So we're going to run this, and we're going to say 1 equals 1 plus, and then what's stored at array value k? That's right, you have a 1 stored there. So now you have a value of, you have that 0 that you had earlier from the first one, plus that 1, so now it's 1. So now it says, okay, that we ran all that code, now we're going to add 1 to k again. So now we have k equal to 2, is 2 smaller than 1,000? Yes, 2 is smaller than 1,000. So I'm going to say 2 equals, and then sum of array, which is, you see where I'm going with this? So it's adding, so it will then say sum of array is equal at this point to 1. So then we add that to, we add sum of array, which is now equal to 1 because k was equal to 1, and 1 plus 0 from the first one is 1. Then we add 2 to it, then I'm just going to do one more of these, and then so we have a total of 3 here, so sum of array is now equal to 3. And so we say we add 1 to k, so we say, okay, k is now equal to, what am I on? I guess 3. So if k is equal to 3, 3 is smaller than array.length, which is 1,000. So we run this, and sum of array now is equal to 3. So we say that the sum of the array is now equal to 3 plus the array at placeholder k, and the placeholder k is now 3. So at placeholder 3 we have 3, and so 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6, and so now sum of array equals 6. And so for 4 places in, we're at the right place. So we would assume that would work for the rest of the program. And so of course this was tested on a smaller scale and whatever, with only like 5 or 10 or whatever that they could just add together. So I guarantee you this does work. I'm pretty sure. So I hope that makes sense. Now we're going to do a system.out.println. Notice the ln, ln, which means go to the next line. The sum of the numbers contained within this array are, and then we're going to put plus sum of array. So now that we have that made, we can now run this. Make this box bigger. But oh, look at that. What it did is it put each one of these on a separate line, then put an enter after each one of them. So what do we do wrong with our code? If we go back up here, you'll notice this is system.out.println, and this is system.out.println. This should be println, this should not, because we're printing them all on the same line. That was a mistake on my part. So now that I got that fixed, let me pull this back up and let's run this again, and this should work. So there we go. So it printed 0 through 14, which is 15 total numbers on one line, then up to 29, 44, all the way down to the bottom. And then notice how here it put the sum of the numbers contained within this array are, and then it added them together on the same line as that. That is kind of it's kind of sloppy. You could of course go in and fix that. We're just getting the gist of the program here. Like say for example, if this number was divisible exactly, let's add 5 to this number, so now it's 1005. So let's run this again, and notice how it put it on another line because it reached that maximum point there where it's then putting a new line, but then it doesn't have anything more for this for loop here where it prints that empty line and then begins again printing all this on that line. So therefore that next line is then taken up completely and solely by this line of code right here. So that's kind of how you get around that. You could also do, another, I could do a system.out.println like that, and then say I revert that back to 1,000. Something like that would probably work, like that, see? So if for aesthetic purposes you might want to do that. In fact, you might want to do 2 of those, such as that. So then it'll have a little space in between. It depends on how you like it to look. You could of course do this with a GUI, I guess, but I don't know, I like doing this way better. I don't know how exactly that would work with a GUI. You'd have to have like a persistent box that loaded all the numbers, and I don't know, I wouldn't really want to do this in a GUI just yet. But anyway, so it adds up the numbers there and gives you this total, and hopefully that total is correct. I don't feel like adding up all those numbers to find out. So that's basically the conclusion of this tutorial. I will of course be posting the source code to this tutorial on Mediafire. I'll have a download link in the description of this YouTube video. And if you have any questions, please comment below or message me on YouTube. And if you have any like inquiries about, say, oh, I wanted to use that image that you had at the beginning for blah 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 or whatever. One, this is under the YouTube license, not the standard one, but the other one that allows for free remixing and whatever. So if you want to grab the image right off that, go ahead. Otherwise, if you want, I can email the image to you or whatever if for some reason you wanted that image. Or if you're going to work on this offline and you wanted to reference that image or whatever. If you have any inquiries like that, just message me on YouTube. The source code again will be available on Mediafire as an RTF, not the output that I'm scrolling through right now, but the actual source code for this. And have a nice day. Bye. Hello and welcome to another Java tutorial. This is the Best Mac Tutorials. Please watch an HD full screen in order to read the text in the Java compiler better. Actually, yeah, it's technically a compiler. It's an IDE, or SDK, sorry. But anyway, today I'm going to be showing you some stuff with strings. I've talked briefly about strings before. I think I mentioned them in my restaurant tutorial that had a user enter a what they thought was an integer, but what the computer saw as a string, and then parsing that into an integer and then using that. And so I'm going to go a little further with strings today. And so I'm going to use a GUI for this. It's just, I don't know, I'm just going to use a GUI. Import javax.swing.wildcard. And that imports all the stuff for us to use our GUIs like I have talked about in recent videos. Now that doesn't include stuff like, say drawing random circles as graphics and stuff. That's something else. But for GUI stuff like little pop-ups, and javax.swing is what you want. And import.wildcard just to make it easier on yourself so you don't have to import a bunch of different random things as you go along. Just import the whole directory. So I am going to... This program that I'm going to show you today asks the user to enter two strings, string 1 and string 2. Then it's going to take the, it's going to make a new string that is basically the first string in all capital letters, and then it's also going to print the index of a character. I'm going to use, say, E, in the first string. So it'll tell you how it's like, say you had the string THE space CAT, ignoring capitalization, and you're trying to find the index of E. It would say 2 because THE, E is the third letter in the sequence, but it starts at 0. T is spot 0, H is spot 1, and E is spot 2. So the index it'll give you is 0. So the way strings are stored is, in Java anyway, it makes an array and then stores each character of the string inside a cell of an array. And that's why you can't go in and then, well, I'll get this put out there right now. Strings are immutable. That means they cannot be changed once they are created. Now, of course, you can convert them to all capitals, but you have to make a new string to do that, and I'll show you how to do that today. So, we're going to define a string as string 1, and it's going to be set equal to nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just like that. Then I'm going to say that string 1 is equal to, and then I'm going to do my JOption pane dot show input dialog, because they're entering a string. What let's see, enter your first string. And then I'm going to just end that right there. And then I'm going to make a string of string 2. And I'm going to set that equal to another empty string set, which will be called, I called it string 2, and so we're going to say string 2 is equal to JOption pane dot show input dialog, enter your second string. Okay? So now if we run this, and our little jar launcher starts up, enter your first string, enter your second string, and now they're inside the program, but I didn't tell it to do anything with those yet. So I'm going to make another string called string 1 capital, string 1 capital, and I'm going to set it equal to nothing. And the reason I'm saying equal to nothing, I don't think you really have to do that, but it's nice to kind of show that it's not equal to anything, then you're kind of commissioning it, you're setting it equal to something. So I'm just setting it equal to nothing, to being empty, just to kind of make sense when you're reading through the code, to make it more simple, and to make it logical so you can kind of see what's going on. And also because, I don't know, I just got in the habit of doing that, and it seems to make sense. And it doesn't, again, storage these days is not a problem. I mean, if you use a double when you should have used a long in your, or an integer, say, in your program, it's not going to make a huge difference in your program size, or the amount of RAM or hard disk space or whatever it takes up. So in these days, since